So thank you for joining me this morning for DocuSign training. So we're going to walk through step by step how to use DocuSign. We're going to start from an opportunity in Command, go all the way through adding documents within DocuSign, sending them for signature, then uploading them for compliance review within Command. As I'm going through the training this morning, please interrupt me with questions. You can unmute yourself, ask a question in the chat box. This training is all for you, so I want to make sure that when you guys leave this training, you feel a lot more comfortable and confident in your ability to use DocuSign. So please ask as many questions as you need. So I'm going to get started. For the sake of time, I've already gone through and created an opportunity. So I'm just going to start there. So I'm going to click on opportunities, which is the icon of the two hands shaking in the far left corner. And then for me personally, I like to come up here to all opportunities because this shows me a list view of all of my opportunities. And I can see here is my 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street opportunity that I just created. I set it up as a listing. So I'm going to walk through how to set up a listing because the disclosure forms within DocuSign, I want to walk through how to use those because it's kind of confusing and different than .loop. So I'm going to click on my opportunity. You can see I filled in all the information here, my contact names, my estimated list price, and I also added the property information over here. Anytime you see this pencil icon in Command, that lets you know that you can edit the information. So you can always come through here and edit and add or update information as you learn more throughout a transaction. And I recommend that you do that to keep your opportunity as up to date as possible, but also because DocuSign will pull in some of that information for this transaction into that system, so that way you don't have to add it manually. Just one thing to keep in mind. So now that I have my opportunity set up, I need to create my DocuSign room. And the way you're going to do that is by clicking on the Documents tab. And then over here in the top right-hand corner, you can see this big blue button, dark blue, blackish button that says Start a Transaction. It is very, very, very important that when you are going through the process of setting up your opportunities and DocuSign rooms, that you click the Start a Transaction button from within Command. By clicking Start a Transaction, you are syncing your opportunity to that room in Command, which will then allow you to upload documents directly from DocuSign into Command. You do have the ability of creating a room in DocuSign directly, but you can never retroactively connect a previously created room to an opportunity. So that's why you always need to click Start a Transaction from within Command. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that Start a Transaction button.
Hey, Nick.
Yes.
Okay, really quick. When you say rooms, what exactly are you meaning? Maybe I missed something.
Okay, so rooms is the DocuSign version of an opportunity, more or less. So for each transaction, you will have a separate room. And that room is where you're going to do all of your paperwork and electronic signatures for that specific transaction. In .loop, they were called loops. And in Command, they're called opportunities. It's just the way of organizing and housing specific information for a transaction.
All right, got it.
Yeah. So you'll see when I click that Start a Transaction button, a new browser tab opened and it logged me into DocuSign. Now, I had already logged into DocuSign earlier this morning because to do a couple things. So that's why it dropped me off right here into my Documents tab within this new room. But if you hadn't logged into DocuSign recently, you would have to log in with your email address and your password. Another thing to keep in mind, if you have pop-up blockers set up on your browser, it will prevent the DocuSign tab from opening, and it will just kind of spin and you'll be like, why is my DocuSign not opening? Always check that out. The easiest way to find out if you have a pop-up blocker is right up here in the URL search bar. There would be a little red box there, and if you clicked on it, it would say pop-up blocker prevented this window from opening. So you want to allow that pop-up blocker, or allow the browser to open up this DocuSign tab. Now, Once you get into DocuSign, it's going to put you right here into this Documents tab of the room. You can see up here in the top left-hand corner, I have 1234 Main Street Tony Stark listing. And this is the same naming convention as my opportunity in command. So that's one of the benefits, is now I know that my opportunity in command is linked to this room because of that naming convention. And then here, right below that, you can see ID number 4266, whatever. This ID number right here, if you decide you would like to email documents directly into your room, you have that capability. That is kind of a DocuSign 2.0 capability, but I'd like to point that out because I know a lot of people really enjoyed that feature in .loop. So if that's something you'd want to do, you can do that here. Always let me know if you want to learn more about that, and you and I can walk through that one-on-one.
Nick, I'm sorry. Can you rewind for last maybe 30 seconds? I kind of missed that whole point. You said something about how do we know that this is now linked to the opportunities? How do we know?
So you can tell right here by the name of this room. So I have it listed at 1234 Main Street Tony Stark listing. And if I come back to my opportunity, this is my opportunity name is 1234 Main Street Tony Stark.
Oh, it's consistent. Yeah.
So it's, so it's the same name, and DocuSign pulls in that information from command, which is why it's important to fill in as much information in command as possible.
And how do we email things into this room?
So that's kind of a DocuSign 2.0, but you and I can talk about that afterwards.
Got you.
If you'd like to take advantage of that feature.
All right, thank you.
So once you've created your new room by clicking Start a Transaction, it's going to put you right here in the Documents tab. Now, your first inclination is like, oh, let me go ahead and start adding documents. Pause, because there are a couple things that you need to do first. If this is your first time in DocuSign, with your first time within DocuSign in this account, you have to confirm your NRDS ID number. And that is your National Association of Realtors ID number. And that is what's going to let DocuSign know that you are a paid member of a Realtor board and you have the right to use the copywritten Georgia Association of Realtor documents. If you do not confirm your NRDS ID, you will not be able to use any of the GAR forms. So 9 times out of 10, when I get an email or a call from an agent saying, hey, I can't find any of the forms, where are they? It's because they had not yet confirmed that ID number. So before we do anything this morning, I want to show you how to confirm that NRDS ID number. And there are 2 ways to do that. And I'll walk through both of them. The first is when you're in this Documents tab, you can come up here to click Add, and then click on DocuSign Forms. And you'll know that you haven't confirmed your NRDS ID number because this pop-up window will show up and it'll show the Realtor ID and then this Northwest Multiple Listing Service icon. I'm going to click on the Realtor, National Association of Realtors logo. And then it's going to ask for my NRDS ID, my last name, and my association. I don't know about you, but I do not know my 9-digit NRDS ID. I don't ever really use it except to confirm it here in DocuSign. So there's this link right below that text box that says find your NRDS ID. I'm going to click on that and it's going to open up a new browser window. And this is going to let me use my last name, email address, and or my real estate license to search for my NRDS ID number. I'm going to use my last name and real estate license number because I don't remember which email address I have associated with my Atlanta Realtor Association board. So I'm just going to use my last name and then my license number and then click Submit. And then it will show your NRDS ID number. So I'm just going to highlight this number here, right mouse click, and copy. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this tab because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to paste in that NRDS ID number. I'm going to fill in my last name, and you need to make sure that your last name here is the same last name that you used when you signed up to become a member of the board, So if you got married or divorced or had any legal name change, make sure that they match here, because if the last names do not match, DocuSign will not be able to confirm this NRDS ID. Now I'm also going to confirm which association I'm a member of. So I'm going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors, and I'm going to just scroll all the way down to the bottom because the Georgia Association of Realtors is up here. It looks like it is now 20th from the bottom, I guess, as I continue to add associations. And I'm going to select Georgia Association of Realtors. And then I'm going to click Validate. It's going to confirm that it's validated those 2 association memberships. And then if this is your very first time confirming your NRDS ID, you would have another pop-up here asking you to accept the terms and conditions for the Georgia Association of Realtors. And you would click Accept. And then you should have this window here that says DocuSign Forms Library and select Library. So that's way number 1 that you can confirm your NRDS ID. Any questions about that?
That's great, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now, the second way you can confirm it is up here in the top right-hand corner. If you see, here's my little picture, or you would see your initials. You can click on that icon and then scroll down to Preferences. And then in the menu on the far left, I'm going to click on Integrations. And then scroll down here to where it says NRDS ID information. And it's going to ask for that same information of the NRDS ID and your last name and your association. Right here where it says clear, because I've just confirmed my NRDS ID, where it says clear here, it'll actually show that find your NRDS ID link. And you can click on that to then search for your number and then come back here and paste all that information in. So that's going to be the second way that you can confirm your NRDS ID. And if you're ever having issues or you need to confirm to make sure that you filled this in correctly, you can come to the Preferences and then Integrations and double check that you are accurately associated with the Georgia Association of Realtors. All right, so now that we've confirmed our NRDS ID information, I'm going to go back to my DocuSign room. So I'm just going to click on Dashboard really quickly. And then I'm going to click on my room that I just created, which is 1234 Main Street. And I'm going to click on Documents. So let's pretend that we just got here. We just created this room. DocuSign has opened up the Documents tab. And as I mentioned, your first inclination here is like, oh, let's go ahead and start adding documents. Don't do that. What you're going to want to do before you add any documents to this room is come up here to the top left and click on the Details tab. And we're going to want to fill in as much of the information about this transaction as possible, because it is the information on the Details tab that will auto-populate our GAR forms that we create and send out for signature. I do want to point out that DocuSign does not autofill information by pulling it out of the FMLS like .loop did. You do have to manually add the information, but once you add it once here in the the Details tab, it will then populate correctly throughout all the other GAR forms. There's 2 sets of information on this Details tab. Kind of the right 3/4 of the page is going to be all the information about the actual physical property that you are selling or buying. So you can see here we have information about the room, location, listing details, offer details, highest bid confirmation details, closing, and additional information, and then property details. And that's all about the actual physical property address. You don't need to fill in every piece of information, especially about like tax information, rooms and all that. That's a little extra, but I always recommend fill in as much information that you have at that time. And as you go through the transaction, you can always update and add more. Then on the right quarter of the page, we have information about the actual buyers and sellers of the transaction. So this example this morning is a listing. So you can see here that my client's information for the listing, seller 1 information, was pulled out directly from Command. 9 times out of 10, DocuSign will accurately pull out the information for your client contact. If you have just added that contact into Command and then immediately make an opportunity and then immediately make a DocuSign room. DocuSign probably won't pull out the contact information, but if you've had that contact in your system for a while, it should auto-populate here. So you can see this right-hand quarter of the page shows client 1, Tony Stark, with his cell phone and email address. At a minimum, you need your client's name, their legal name, and their email address in DocuSign. I'm going to scroll down. We have seller 2. So here we have Pepper Potts, and then Pepper's email, which is just my personal email. And then scrolling down, we have listing agent 1, which is me. It's pulled in most of my information here. We can edit and update all of that accurately in just a moment. Then scrolling down, we have listing agent 2. So if you have a co-agent on this listing, you can add his or her name here. And then scrolling down, we have buyer 1. So if you're working with a buyer and you're creating a DocuSign room for a buyer, you would leave the seller information blank, and then you'd come down here and you'd fill in your client's information for buyer 1. Buyer 2, you'd set up yourself as buyer 1 or a buyer agent 1, and then if there was a buyer agent 2, you can fill in that information here. That's the layout of this page. Now we can go through and actually edit and update this information. So I'm going to click on the edit button in the top right-hand corner. And as with everything in Command and DocuSign, I always recommend you start at the top and just work your way down. So fill in the information that we have. So MLS ID. So I would go ahead and I'm just going to fill in the MLS ID. I'm just going to make one up for today. If you want to fill in this information about origin of lead and room status, you can. You don't have to. For property address, I'm just going to type in 1234 Main Street, Northeast, City, Atlanta, County Fulton. We'll select Georgia, 30342. Property type, I'm going to select residential detached. Year built, I'm going to select 2001. And then special circumstances, no special circumstances today. So this is a listing, so I need to add in my listing date information. So I'm going to select, we can just do today, the 30th, listing expiration date. Let's do December 31st. Original listing amount, 375,000. Current listing amount, 375,000. Scrolling down, we have offer details. Now, we're just getting ready to list this, so I don't have any offer details just yet to fill in. No highest bid information, no closing information, and I don't want to go through and fill in all this information right now. So we're good to go with the actual property information. That's why I say to fill in as much of the information that you have as accurately as possible, and you can always come through and update accordingly later on. Now I want to go through and I want to double check my client's information and my contact information. So I have my seller 1, Tony Stark, cell phone number and email address. Like I said, at a minimum, I just need contact email address because DocuSign needs to be able to email these documents for their signature. Scrolling down, Pepper Potts, we have her name and email address, so we're good to go there. Then scrolling down, we have my name. Here's my phone number, the address. So I need to just finish filling in the address for the office. Country, United States, state, Georgia, postal code 30342. And I don't have a co-listing agent. Now scrolling down, we have buyer 1, buyer 2, and buyer's agent information. You can fill in your co-op agent's information here. So I could, if I wanted to, scroll all the way down and add that buyer's agent information. That's fine. That being said, I want to go ahead and I want to make a note here, and I'll remind you later on as well. I do not recommend sending any documents in DocuSign to a co-op agent for signature. I always recommend that you send PDFs of documents to that co-op agent, and it has to do with the way that DocuSign works. And if you include your seller 1, seller 2, and you include the buyer's agent for signature, let's say you're negotiating back and forth, DocuSign will not consider that document completed and show a signed copy of that document until all assigned parties have signed it. So the buyer's agent probably will never sign it because you're negotiating that document. And therefore you will never have a signed copy in your room. So while you can fill in your information here for the co-op side, please do not send documents for signature through DocuSign. So now that I've double checked my seller 1, seller 2, and my information in here, I'm going to click Save in the bottom right-hand corner. So the room has been updated, so everything is good to go. So now that my Details tab has been updated, I'm now going to go to the Documents tab. And now we can finally start adding documents to our room. You'll notice here we have a Room Docs folder, and the Room Docs folder is going to be the default folder for DocuSign. So anytime you add a document to the room, either from within DocuSign, or it's a signed, completed document, or you upload a document, they will default into the Room Docs folder, but you do have the ability to create folders for organization purposes. For those that are familiar with .loop, we had to have a specific folder convention to submit those documents to Lynn and Alita for compliance review. Now that compliance takes place in Command, you can set up your DocuSign rooms however you want to, so you can be as organized or as messy as you prefer. But I do know a lot of agents like to have different folders so they can help organize documents, because some transactions will have a ton of documents. If you would like to create folders, up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click on Actions and then Add Folder. And then I'm going to name this Listing Agreement. I'm going to click Create. And now I have my Listing Agreement folder. So I can go through and I can put all of my listing agreement documents in one folder, and then I can have all the documents that would be related to a purchase and sale agreement in a different folder. So you can add as many folders as you want, any which naming convention you want. Your client won't see this, Lynn or Alita will not see it, it's all for you. So however, whichever system and naming convention works best for you. Now that I have my folder set up, I'm going to start finally adding documents to this DocuSign room. The way that you add documents is up here in the top right-hand corner where it says plus add. I'm going to click on that button and then select DocuSign Forms. So right here is going to be a little bit of a difference between the agents within the First Atlanta office and the Atlanta Perimeter office. So I'll walk through both separately. So first I'll walk through First Atlanta. So if you're with the First Atlanta office, you'll want to leave this as DocuSign Forms Library. And then here where it says Select Library, I'm going to select Georgia Association of Realtors. I don't know why the Greater Alabama MLS is on there. Just ignore it. So select GAR, and this is going to pull up all 180 documents or 180 GAR forms. And then you can start searching for the forms that you want. So you type in, purchase and sale. Oop. Right here, and then you can select the document that you want. If you are with the Atlanta Perimeter office, Stacy has gone through and organized various groups of documents for you. So what you can do is you can come up here to where it says DocuSign Forms Library and select DocuSign Forms Group. And then from Select Group, there'd be a list of a listing group, a buyer group, a tenant group, landlord, all the different groups of documents for all the different types of transactions you would likely execute. It's not, it's going to be all the documents that are most commonly used, but it's not going to be an exclusive list. The reason First Atlanta did not include groups here is because we wanted to make sure everyone knew how to use DocuSign and how to find those forms if they are outside of a group. The goal is to set up those DocuSign Forms groups, and we'll probably do that with the 2021 version of those documents. So for me this morning, I'm going to click back into Library, and then I'm going to select Georgia Association of Realtors Library. And because we're doing a listing, I'm going to pull up my exclusive seller listing agreement. So when you start searching, all the different documents that have that name will pop up. I would recommend that you start to learn the form numbers for each one of these forms. So you can see here, I have 3 different versions of an exclusive seller listing agreement. I have a commercial, exclusive, and non-exclusive. Now I want to use the F101 because you can search F101 in that search bar. So I'm going to select this, and now it updates this bottom left-hand number to say 1 form selected. And I also need to include the seller's property disclosure. And again, I have a couple different options here. So I need to be careful to make sure I select the right one because here's a condo, land lot, new construction, and then I want this F301 form. And then I also need the community association disclosure, so F322. And because this property was built in 2001, I believe I selected, we don't need a lead-based paint. And then the last document I want to include for this morning is the purchase and sale. Now I understand because this is a listing, I likely would not be creating a purchase and sale agreement. I would likely be receiving one from a buyer's agent, but I do want to walk through how to use that document because it's going to be probably one of the most commonly used and important documents in your real estate career. So I'm going to type in F201, and then I'm going to select the purchase and sale agreement. Now this number in the bottom left-hand corner has updated to 4 forms selected, and that lets me know that all 4 of those forms that I have checked will be added to my room. So I'm going to click Add, and DocuSign is going to add those forms to my room. The page reloads, and you can see that all 4 of those documents have now been added into the Room Docs folder. But I want to move my listing agreement forms up to my listing agreement folder. There are 2 ways to move forms in a room. The first way is to roll your mouse over the form icon. And when you do that, a radio button appears in the top left-hand corner. If you select that button, I'm going to select 2 documents here. Whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear right here. And what you can do is roll your mouse over the different icons and find the Move button. So I'm going to click on Move, select a destination folder in current room, and then I'm going to select the listing agreement folder, select Move, and the page will reload, and those documents will have moved into the listing agreement folder. The second way to move a document from one folder to another is to roll your mouse over it, click on it, and drag it into the folder you want. And then the page will reload, and now it'll be in that folder. So it's very simple to move documents within your room. Now that I've added all the documents I want to use this morning, I've organized them in the correct folders. Now we can start updating the information on them. So I'm going to get started with my exclusive seller listing agreement. So I'm going to open that. I'm just going to click on it to open. Give it a second to load here. All right. So now we have our listing agreement. You can see the address information was pulled in from the details tab. One thing I want to point out here, if you update any of the information that was auto-populated from the details tab, that information will be updated, will be changed here. If you update this line here of 1234 Main Street, it'll update this text box here, but then it will also update the information on the details tab, which will subsequently change all the information that's loaded on the other DocuSign forms. So be mindful before changing any of the pre-populated fields. So we have our address, city, county, zip code. I need to include the tax parcel ID number, so I'm just going to put in a number here. Legal description, I'm going to select attached as exhibit here too. Or if you like to do how I like to do sometimes, I just do same as described in deed, book, and page. And then I'm going to, just kind of go through this document, start from the top and work my way down and fill in the information. So listing period, I'm going to add in the date here. So we have 10/30/2020. I'm going to click tab. It's going to take me to that next box of 12/31/2020. 2020. List price, it added at 375 from the details tab. One thing I want to point out here for list price, so on the listing agreement and on the purchase and sale agreement, I don't know why, it does not allow you to add commas in the sales price. You can add it in there, but then when you save and then reopen the document, that comma will be removed. So just be mindful of that. The seller does authorize the right to negotiate marketing. So I'm just going to type in here, FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. Oh, one thing I also want to point out here. This training is how to use DocuSign. It is not how to properly fill in information. So I'm just going to shorthand, abbreviate, kind of skip over some of the things. I just want to make sure you guys learn how to use the DocuSign system. For any questions on what actually goes in any of these fields or text boxes, please refer to Lynn or Alita on that. Scrolling down, we have commission. The seller agrees to pay. I negotiated 6%, and the broker agrees to pay the cooperating broker 3%. Protected period, I negotiated 90 days. I'm an independent contractor, and the agency does not offer dual agency or sub-agency. So you can see how easy it is just to start at the top and fill in those text boxes and select the different radio buttons. Very similar to .loop. The main difference here is that DocuSign doesn't have that calendar button for the listing period dates that .loop does. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. No special circumstances. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling through all this information. Perfect. So now we have the brochures that we're going to include. So include any brochures that you would like. The mold pamphlet, EPA, protect yourself from selling a house. All of the brochures are loaded into DocuSign, so you can add those to your room as well. And then we have our legal description exhibit, so I would select that as Exhibit A. And then if you have any special circumstances that are special stipulations you would like to include, you can type those here. You can add as many as you would like that fit. So this is, pretty big box. You can probably fit in a handful of special stipulations. In the event that the number of stipulations do not fit here, I would recommend that you click the additional stipulations are attached button and then add that additional steps page. But you can just type them in there. Keep scrolling down. You'll see here it's added our clients' names and email addresses directly from the details tab. One thing that you're going to notice here that's going to be the main difference between DocuSign and .loop is that there's no signature option here. Because in .loop, it would show us right here in the document where everyone would sign. In DocuSign, we have to create an envelope to send these documents out for signature. So when you're working and updating the documents in the Documents tab, there won't be any signature fields. We'll get to setting those up in just a few moments. So all that information is correct. I'm going to scroll down, double check my information. Now there's a handful of pieces of information that are missing. So you do need to fill them in. I know that Hutch at the region is having a lot of conversations with DocuSign as to how to get this information to load every time, knowing that our MLS office code and brokerage license number and our personal license number will remain the same every single time. So I'm just going to fill this in for the time being. Fax number. I recommend filling in as many of the fields as possible so that way Lynn or Lita does not have any chance to give you any notes or delay getting paid. Real estate license number 379-844 and then number of Atlanta. So I'm going to fill that in. Everything else looks really good. I'm going to click Save and Close. You can click the Save and Close button up here in the top right-hand corner, or if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the document, there's the Save and Close button there. Save and Close. All right. So now that we filled in the exclusive seller listing agreement, let's open up the seller's property disclosure. So I'm going to open this. Give it a second to load. All right. So I don't need to fill in an exhibit letter because we don't have an exhibit yet because this is not a part of a binding purchase and sale agreement. I don't have an offer date yet, but you can see here it's loaded the address properly. Good to go. And then as I scroll down, I see all these fields where they can fit, the seller could fill in information or check yes or no. One thing you'll notice, there are no fields here for me to update. There's no text boxes. I can't check anything. I can't type anything in. That is on purpose. The reason is all of the fields for any disclosures are mapped to seller one to fill in. So when I open these documents in DocuSign, I do not have permission or access to these text fields to fill in the information. So you just want to go through here and double check it, just to make sure that the pre-populated information is correct, but do not worry that there are no text fields here. All of those will be loaded when we create the envelope and send for signature. So I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom, double check, make sure everything looks good to go, and make sure that my client's information was added properly. So we have seller one, seller two, everything else looks good to go, and then click save and close. The reason I want to point that out is because in .loop, agents did have the ability to fill in those forms. We do not have that ability in DocuSign. Now I'm going to open the community association disclosure, which will be very similar to the property disclosure, and that it will update the property address. I don't need to fill in the exhibit letter. And if I scroll down, I now have a bunch of blank fields that, again, I do not have access to fill in as the listing agent. All of this information has to be filled in by seller one. So I'm just going to scroll through just to make sure nothing's missing. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. All right, everything looks good to go here. I'm going to click save and close. So it's that simple. Now that we've gone through our listing agreements, I want to walk through the purchase and sale agreement, which I do know would be kind of, this is out of order for how a transaction would go. But I want to make sure you are comfortable and familiar with the purchase and sale agreement, since it is a very important document in your real estate career. So I'm going to open up the purchase and sale. And as it loads, all right. So we'll just fill this out as if I am submitting an offer, and we'll just start at the top and work our way down. So I'm going to do offer date. I'm going to type in, we can just do 10/30/2020. We have our property address here, MLS number. I'm going to fill in the tax parcel ID, so I'm just going to add a number here. Legal description, attached as an exhibit here too. Purchase price of the property paid by buyer. Let's just do 370, 123. Closing cost, the buyer is going to ask for 5,000 in closing. Date of possession will be, let's do 11, excuse me, 11/30/20. And possession will take place at closing. Hold of the earnest money will be KWFA. Closing attorney will do Campbell and Brannon. Earnest money would be paid by check, and it would be, we'll do 3,700 within 3 days of binding. So you can see it's very same process as going through .loop and just filling in the information. Due diligence, we're negotiating 10 days. Lead-based paint was not attached because the house was built in 2000. All right, so we come down here. So selling broker, let's say the buyer broker's name is, the buyer broker is Harry Norman. And then the listing broker is Keller Williams Realty First Atlanta. I'm just gonna remove Realty and just have it be Keller Williams First Atlanta, just so it takes up less space. If you're with the Atlanta Perimeter office, Lynn has approved for you to use KW Atlanta Perimeter, and that'll fit in that box, and that way they don't take up so much space. So I'm going to click that I'm representing my client seller as client, they're representing their buyer as client, and there are no material relationships. All right, and then I'm going to give time limit of offer. I'm going to do 12 p.m. on 10/31/2020. All right, so I'm just going to scroll down and continue to fill in the information. Keep scrolling. All right, so we have our exhibits here. I don't know why all cash sale exhibit was added there, but we don't want that. So we'll have our seller's property disclosure. I like to use that as exhibit A. And then we'll do community association as exhibit B. Then we have our legal description as C. And then you can go through here and select any of the exhibits that you want to attach. Now we'll scroll down to the special stipulations. I want to point out here that for whatever reason, when DocuSign was setting up the fields here, they didn't make this field very large. And I know that a lot of agents have a lot of stipulations they like to use on every single purchase and sale agreement. In the event that the stipulations do not fit here, you have two options. One, you can use the additional stipulations page, which would be very simple, or you cannot add any of your stipulations here. And then when we go to create the envelope, I can show you how you can add a text box here and add those stipulations. And you can make those stipulations smaller in font so you can fit more in the text box, which probably isn't going to gain you any friends with the co-op agent or the closing attorney, but you would be able to fit more on the page. But like every other text box, you can type in your stips here. More. So add as many as you can. I'm going to scroll down. We'll see here we have our seller's name and seller's email address. So seller 1 and seller 2, seller's name and email address. The reason I point out that the email address is included here on the purchase and sale agreement is that for me personally, I don't like to include any of my clients' contact information on any document that goes to a co-op agent. I'm sure 9 times out of 10 that co-op agent is going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have with my client. However, I don't want to take a chance that I may be submitting an offer to an agent that's going to try to go directly to my client, try to negotiate me out of the deal or do something shady. So my first inclination here would be to delete my client's email addresses. But like Ed mentioned earlier, anytime that you change or delete information from a pre-populated field, it deletes or changes that information from the details tab, and then will thus affect every other document moving forward. So we're not able to delete the email address here, because if I do, it deletes it from the room. And then when I go to send documents for signature, there won't be any email addresses for my sellers to receive them. So what I'm going to recommend is leave them here on the purchase and sale form, and I will show you in the envelope how we can hide them so that contact information doesn't show up for the co-op agent. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to double check my information. Perfect. So I have real estate. I need to change my Georgia real estate license number here to 379844. That looks like it was incorrectly mapped. And then my realtor membership, Atlanta, MLS office code KWFA01. And if you wanted to, you could go through and be a really nice co-op agent and fill in that buyer's agent information here, or co-op, which I would recommend. Anything you can do to make your offer stand out. But again, do not recommend sending this document through DocuSign to that co-op agent for signature. So now that I've filled in the purchase and sale agreement, I'm going to click Save and Close. All right, so it looks like I have an unknown error occurred. Please contact DocuSign Forms. I think there must be something going on with DocuSign, because I was working with an agent yesterday that kept getting this error message, so this is not fun. So I'm going to double check my purchase and sale agreement and see if it saved anything. All right, so it looks like nothing was saved. That is great. I'm going to continue on with the training, but I just want to point out that if you get that error message, let me know, because I'm trying to work with DocuSign to get that fixed. Now, pretending that purchase and sale agreement was fully filled out, we're going to continue to move forward. Our next step is to send these documents to signature for our clients to sign. There are two ways to send them for signature. Well, the way that let me just take a step back. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. In order to send these documents for signature, you have to create an envelope. And the way that Michael News explained envelopes to me, I think is really smart, so I like to share it, is he said, think of envelopes in DocuSign like a manila folder. And let's say you had physical copies of all of your VAR forms and your purchase and sale, and you wanted to organize those documents in a manila envelope to prepare them for the client signature. Then when you see your client, you would take that manila envelope and hand it to your clients and say, please review and sign these documents. Envelopes in DocuSign are that same idea of that manila envelope that you use to send and hand them over to your clients. So there are two ways to create envelopes. The first way is within the Documents tab, you can roll your mouse over the documents that you would like to send for signature. And then whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear. And you can roll your mouse over the icons to where it says Create Envelope. And if you clicked on this button here, it would create an envelope with these forms included. So that's option number one. And then the other option is by clicking on the Envelopes tab. And then in the top right-hand corner, click on New. And now we'll be able to create an envelope from scratch. So either selecting the forms within the Documents tab or clicking on Envelopes and then New will both take you to this same page here. Now, with the envelopes, I recommend you start at the top and we'll work our way down and fill in the information as needed. So envelope name, this envelope name is for you only. It's for your organization purposes. Your client or Lynn or Lita will not see this. So I recommend that you name this envelope something you'll be able to keep track of, because throughout a transaction, you will send 10, 20, 30, 40, maybe up to 100 different envelopes, and that's fine. So you want to make sure that you label them in a way that you can keep track of them, especially if you're working with a buyer and a very picky buyer that may have a habit of going under contract and terminating. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street, so I know the property address, and I'm going to just abbreviate listing, exclusive seller listing agreement, and purchase and sale. But name it whatever convention you'll be able to keep track of. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to add documents to the envelope. To add documents to the envelope, I'm going to click on Room Docs because I want to add the documents from my room. So I'm going to click Room Docs here. And then it's going to show me all of the documents that are currently in the room. Now, at this stage, for me, it's fine because I only have 4 documents in my room and I want to send all 4 of them. As you start to get further along in the transaction and you have a lot more documents in that room, this will become more and more cluttered. So you do need to pay attention to make sure that you're adding the correct forms. So I'm going to click on Add Selected. And you'll see here, it adds those forms to this room. We'll give that a second to load. And now I need to add my affiliated marketing and wire fraud prevention disclosures for the office. Now, if you're an agent with Atlanta Perimeter, Stacy has added those to your room or to the Documents tab, so you can search for them there. For Atlanta Perimeter, for First Atlanta, the MCA office has added those as templates, and the reason they're added as templates is because there's actually no fields for us to update. It's really just for signature. So I'm going to add those disclosures by clicking on Use a Template right here. And then I'm going to select Shared with Me, and this is going to pull up all of the templates that the MCA office has shared with the office. All right, so here I'm going to scroll down. You'll see I have affiliated marketing and wire fraud, but it says buyer. And then if I continue to scroll down, I see the same 2 disclosures with seller. It's very important that you select the correct version of these disclosures, depending on which side of the transaction you are working. because the signature fields are mapped according to which side of the transaction and which clients you have. So for this morning, I'm going to select seller wire fraud and seller affiliated marketing. If you select the incorrect version, there will not be any places for your clients to sign. So I'll click Add Selected. So I'll give those a second to load. All right. So now I have all 6 documents added to my envelope, but they are in alphabetical order based on when I added them, and I want them to be in a very specific signing order. I want my clients to sign the listing agreement before they review the disclosures, before they sign a purchase and sale agreement. It is at this step right here that you can reorder the signing order of the documents, but this is the only time and place that you're able to reorder them. If you do not do it here, you will not be able to do it in the next screen. The way that you reorder documents is by rolling your mouse over that document, clicking your mouse down, and dragging it to the position that you want it. So I want to drag that there. So now I have my seller listing agreement. I then want my seller's property disclosure to be the second document they sign. Then after that, we have our community association, and then I want my affiliated marketing, and then I want my wire fraud prevention, and then my purchase and sale agreement. So now I have these documents in the correct order that I prefer for my clients. So once I have my documents added to my room, I've added my disclosure templates, and I've put them in the correct order, I'm going to scroll down, and now we can start adding recipients to the envelope. It is very, very, very important at this stage that you add recipients as pre-tagged roles. So we have 3 different options here. We have pre-tagged roles, room participants, and email addresses. It is very, 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 very important, and I know I'm repeating myself, but very important that you select pre-tagged roles. And the reason is all of the documents that we have filled out, all those GAR forms and the templates, all have signature fields and initial fields mapped to pre-tagged roles. So by selecting pre-tagged roles here, it will allow DocuSign to automatically assign the correct places for my seller 1 and seller 2, and for me as listing agent to initial and sign. If you do not select pre-tagged roles, those signature fields will not be added, and you will have to manually add every single field, which I know you don't want to do, and we are all really busy agents. You don't have time to sit there and add signature. So make sure that you select pre-tagged roles. Now, if you are working on a PDF or something like that, you will have to add those signature fields automatically, but anytime you are working with a GAR form from within DocuSign, be sure to select pre-tagged roles. So I'll click on pre-tagged roles, and then I'm gonna have this pop-up window show up, and this is gonna have every single different field that's on any one of these forms. And I'm gonna come here to seller 1, and I'm gonna select seller 1 from the drop-down menu. So I'll select Tony Stark, and then seller 2, I'm gonna select Pepper Potts. Listing agent, I'm gonna select myself. Your name will likely be in here twice, and that's fine, because you'll be in there once as the owner agent of the room, and then the second time as the listing agent that you added yourself to the details tab. Pick either or, it'll be fine. And then I'll come down here, it'll say seller 1, I can do Tony Stark, and then seller 2, Pepper Potts. And then I'm gonna click Add Selected. So we'll give that a second to load. All right, okay. I see here it's adding seller 1 and seller 2. So I'm just gonna remove these. So I'm gonna click remove here, delete, and then delete. And we'll add those signature fields to those disclosures. So now that I've added my recipients, there's a handful of information I'm gonna walk through for each one of these fields. On the left-hand side of each one of our recipients, there's a box with number 1 in it. Those boxes are the signing order that are assigned to each signer, which I know is a lot of the signs in that. So right now it's going to default to 1, which means that each recipient can sign at the exact same time. However, I want to make a signing order. So I want seller 1 to sign first, and then seller 2, and then myself. And the reason is I want seller 1 to go through and fill in that information for those disclosures, and then seller 2 have the opportunity to review that information before I sign. That also gives me the ability to make my exclusive seller listing agreement a binding document. So if you want to update the order of signers, within that box, come over here and then just highlight the number and then type in the number that you want. Now I can see that it's added Pepper Potts as signer 2, and I'm going to update myself as signer 3. Give it a second and it will reload. And now I have the correct signing order. Now here I have their name and email address for each one of the recipients. You can change it here, but I recommend that you don't. To the right here, it says needs to sign with a drop down. The system will default to needs to sign, but you have a handful of different permissions that you can assign to each recipient. Needs to sign, needs to view. So if they just need to view the document but don't have to sign, that's fine. Receives a copy. This is just if you want someone to receive a copy of the executed documents, but they don't have anything to do with them. This most commonly would be used for a closing attorney or a lender if you would like to set them up to automatically receive copies of the documents once everything is binding. I would only recommend that if you have a very close relationship with those partners and you've given them a heads up that they will be receiving a signed contract through DocuSign. Otherwise, do not set them up to receive a copy and specify recipient, so if you need to specify a specific role. So I'm going to leave it as needs to sign for today. And then to the right of that, I have a more drop down, and I can click on more, and I have 2 options: add access authentication and add private message. If you have a client that is very concerned about e-signing any document and fears that his or her email could be compromised and is worried that someone's going to break into his email and start signing purchase and sale agreements and getting him under contract on properties he doesn't know about, you can add this access authentication code. And so I'm going to click that, and it gives me this blank box of entering an access code here. And then I can type in a code that I would like that client to have to fill in before he or she can sign those documents. So for this example, for Tony, I would let Tony know, probably give him a call and say, hey, Tony, when you go to sign these documents, you have to type in the code 12345 before DocuSign will allow you to start signing those documents. That's to prevent anyone that is not a part of this transaction having access or hacking in and signing these documents on your behalf. Now, I wouldn't recommend actually using 12345, but you can use whatever code you would like here. Now, I'm going to click discard because I don't actually want to include that access authentication code for today. Now, I have the ability to add a private message. So Tony is set up as seller 1, and I'm going to add a private message here that says, hi, Tony. Please be sure to fill in the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure before clicking finish. Thank you, Nick. Now, this private message is going to go only to Tony. Pepper or myself will not see this message. So if you've had a special conversation or something you just want to remind your client of when you send that, you can add this private message. Now, because Tony's seller 1, I want to remind him that he needs to fill in those fields before clicking finish to submit for signature. Any questions on adding recipients to the envelope? All right. So now that we've added our documents to the room, we've put our documents in the correct order that we want them to be signed. We've added recipients. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to add a message to my recipients. The email subject will default to please DocuSign. I recommend that you leave that in there so your clients know that this is a document that they need to sign. And then I'm going to do -1234 Main Street exclusive seller listing agreement, and purchase and sale. And then I'll enter a message that says, hi, Tony and Pepper, please review and e-sign the documents for your listing. Thank you. Now, I'm just making a really short message. I don't recommend a very long one, but just a message that they know exactly what it is that they need to do to review and sign these documents. I would also recommend giving them a call or a text message, giving them a heads up that these documents are in their inbox. So once you've done everything here, you've given your room and your envelope a name, you've attached documents, signers, and given a message, I'm going to click on next. And this is going to take me to the envelope editor where I can double check and make sure that all of my signature fields are added correctly and add any additional missing fields that I may need. Now there's a lot of information on this screen, so I'm going to walk through the layout before we start actually doing anything. So up in the top right or top left-hand corner, you can see it says Tony Stark with a yellow circle. If I click, there's a drop-down menu and it shows all three signers, so Tony, Pepper, and myself, and each one of us has our own separate color. So you see here, if I click on Pepper, all of these standard fields down here change to blue, and if I select myself, it changes to purple. And this is going to make it very easy for you to visually identify which fields on these documents are assigned to which recipient. So I can change through between each one of the recipients to quickly add a signature field or name field or whichever field I want. These standard fields here I can add to the document at any time, and they will be automatically assigned, excuse me, to the corresponding recipient. In the middle here is going to be a preview of the document. If you do anything, you add any document or any signature fields, you can click undo, redo, and you can also change the zoom in. So if you want to make it smaller, easier to read, or more difficult to read, or make it bigger so it's easier to read, you can do that as well. And then over on the right-hand side, we have thumbnail versions of each one of the documents. So you can see this is the correct order that I put these documents in, and then I can see quick thumbnails of each one of those documents. What's great about the thumbnails is that you see here on the last page, it has tabs with the colors of the corresponding recipients that have a signature field on that page. Think of it as if you were receiving a giant document from a lawyer and they had gone through and put those 3M tabs on each one of the pages that you needed to sign. It's that same premise. So I can click through the seller's property disclosure, and then I can see I have yellow tabs on each one of these pages because seller one has a requirement to sign or fill in the information there. So I could click through each one of the thumbnails to quickly jump to that specific page. Now I want to go through each one of the documents, double check that the information is correct, see if I missed anything, if I need to add anything, or if I need to add any signatures. So here I'm just going to start at the exclusive seller listing agreement and kind of work my way down, just giving it a quick once over to make sure that all the fields are filled in correctly. I don't want to get any tags from Lynn when I submit for compliance. Everything looks good. One thing I want to point here at the bottom of the first page of each one of the GAR forms, it says this form is copyrighted and may only be used in real estate transactions in which blank is involved as a real estate licensee. In DocuSign, or sorry, excuse me, in .loop, it did pre-populate our names there, but you can see here's my name and Keller Williams First Atlanta is in the bottom left-hand corner of the page. And Lynn confirmed that this fulfills this requirement here of adding our name, so we do not need to add our name again there. So I'm going to continue to scroll down, double check all the information. Keep scrolling. Everything looks good here. And then I can see here that Tony has a signature field and a date signed field, and so does Pepper, and so does myself. So those all look good. I do not sign here in .loop. You used to sign within the system. I have to actually send this to myself like I would for seller one and seller two to sign, but I want to make sure that my signature is there. So good to go. Now, one thing that's really cool is that for this listing agreement, since I set myself up to be the last signer, I can make this document binding. So it just kind of makes it a one less step for myself after the fact to make this a binding agreement. So what I want to do is I'm going to select myself from the drop-down menu. So select my name. All the fields are now purple, and I can add text boxes over here on this in these fields to make it binding. So I'm going to make this this signed agreement is hereby accepted at blank o'clock. I can also click copy and paste for that text field. So I can just add that text field right here, so I don't have to add and reformat. And if I wanted to, I could add another text field here, or really simply, I could add a date signed field by clicking date signed and dragging date signed over here. And now DocuSign will automatically add that date there of when I go to sign. Because one of the really cool things about DocuSign is once everyone has signed the documents, the system will automatically send out copies to every single person. So it saves you that step as well, that after they've signed their documents, you don't have to send a follow-up email and say, here are copies of your signed listing agreement, community association, and seller's property disclosure. And I've just made this binding here. So I'm going to continue to scroll down. I'm going to go through my seller's property disclosure statement. Now you'll see here, all these boxes and all these radio buttons are highlighted yellow. That lets me know that they are signed to seller one, to Tony. But if you noticed up here on this text box, it's filled in purple, and it has this required field box checked. But if I scroll back down and I select on this, click on this text box, it's assigned to Tony Stark, but it's not required. What that means is that when Tony goes to sign these documents, the system will jump from required field to required field, which will be signature to signature to signature. The system will not stop for Tony to fill in these fields for the seller's property disclosure or community association disclosure. So you have two options. You can tell your client, hey, please remember to fill in the fields for the seller's property disclosure. The system's gonna jump to signature, but just scroll back up and fill it in. Or what you could do is you can make this first text box right here a required field. And now it fills in that highlight of yellow. And what this will do is the system will stop on this field and make sure that Tony fills in the year that this dwelling was constructed. It'll make it a lot easier for Tony to then scroll through and fill in the rest of the fields for this document. It's just a quick little workaround that'll make it a lot easier for your clients. Because 9 times out of 10, when I get a question from an agent saying, hey, my client signed the disclosures but didn't actually fill anything in, the system is broken. Well, the system may have some errors, it happens, but probably what happened is he or she didn't know they had to scroll up and fill in those fields. So by making this text field required, the system will automatically stop for your client. So I'm going to continue to scroll through, double check and make sure that all these fields are assigned to yellow. So that way seller one, Tony, is able to fill them in. Keep scrolling through, double checking everything. Everything looks good. We have our client signature for seller one, seller two, date signed, good to go there. The next is the community association disclosure. And again, I can see all these boxes are yellow, so they're assigned to seller one, but they're not required. Now, I don't know what type of association my clients have, so I don't want to make any single one of these fields required because it may not be the correct field. But what I can do is I can come down here to the name of the association. I can click on this text field, and I can make this required. And so again, the system will stop here, and Tony will be required to fill in the name of the association before the system allows him to move on. And it'll be a lot easier from this field for your client to then scroll up and select the correct type of HOA that they have. So now I'm going to continue to scroll down, make sure everything is filled in correctly. All those are properly assigned to Tony. We have seller one and seller two signature, our initial fields there, which is good to go. I'm down here for my affiliated marketing. Now here, I don't have any client signatures, so I need to update and add them. So I'm going to come up here to my drop down, I'm going to select Tony, and then I'm going to select signature. I'm going to add that signature field right there. And then when I click date signed, and I'm going to add a date signed field for there. And then I'm also going to select Pepper signature field, add that over here for her, and then add a date signed field. And then I'm good to go. And now I'll keep scrolling down. We have our wire fraud prevention. Now, for whatever reason, these signature fields move down. So I'm just going to move those back up into the right position. And then we have our full name and date signed. This full name field, it just shows us full name here, but when the clients actually go to sign, it will fill in Tony Stark and Pepper Potts there for them automatically. So they don't have to type anything in. I'm going to scroll down into my purchase and sale agreement. Now remember, we got that error message, so none of these fields actually saved, which is fine. We'll just kind of pretend that they're there for today. But let's say you're like, oh no, I forgot to put in an offer date. I can select myself from the drop-down menu, and I can come here, add a text box to whichever field you're missing. I'm just going to format to fit, and I can type in 10/31/2020. It will default to that this is the required field, but I want this field to show up for everybody when they review and sign, so I'm going to uncheck required and make it read only. So that way nobody's able to edit this field when they go to sign. And 10/31/2020 will show up when everyone is signing. I'm going to continue to scroll down, double check and make sure that seller 1 and seller 2's initials are right there. I'm going to keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling. Here we have our exhibits, which again didn't save. And then we have our special stipulations. Now I had added some here before, but remember I told you you have two options if your stipulations don't fit. You can click the additional steps page, or you could add a text box here. So if you wanted to add a text box, select yourself, click text box, add that here and format it to fit in the space. Take up as much room as possible. And then to start typing in your steps. Now what you can do is I'm just going to type tons here. You can see I added a lot of stipulations here, so I have to scroll up and down to see them all. And you can't actually scroll on a PDF. So what you can do is I can select, I'm going to command all, so I'm going to highlight all of the stipulations I've typed. I'm going to come over here to this field where on the menu on the right hand side. I'm going to uncheck required field. I'm going to make this read only, and then I'm going to select formatting, and I'm going to change this from a 9 size font to a 7-point font. And now you can see that all those stipulations now fit in this window. That's what I was saying earlier, where you may not win any new friends from the closing attorney or lender or co-op agent by making your special steps very small, but it does make them fit on this page, so you don't have to use the additional steps page if you don't want to. So now I'm going to scroll down, double check and make sure that my signatures are correctly added. Perfect. Now you'll see here, it shows my client's email addresses, and I pointed out to you earlier that I would show you how to hide them. When you want to hide any information on these forms, roll your mouse all the way over to the left and then click on this pen icon that says Markup Tools, and then select Line, and then drag that over here, and then I'm going to add a line over my client's email address. It's going to default to red, but I can come over here and I can change the color to black, and then I can change the thickness to 10, and then I can just position that so it hides my client's email address. Perfect. So now you can't see Tony's email address. I'm going to right mouse click on that and click copy and then paste. And I'm going to drag this black bar over seller 2. And now both of my clients' contact information is private from that co-op agent. I'm going to scroll down, double check and make sure that my signature is all perfect here, and we are good to go. Now, I'm not going to add a binding agreement date information here on this document because I'm actually going to be sending this to my co-op agent for review as my initial offer, so I don't need to make this binding yet.
Hey, Nick, quick
Yeah.
question.
Yep.
Excuse me for interrupting. When you're hiding their email address like that, is it going to look like just a black box like that when they see it, when it's emailed to them? Okay.
Yeah.
But
so it will show up as a, sorry?
I'm saying at least they don't see it though.
Yeah, so it's not the most attractive looking thing, but yes, it does protect our client's privacy.
Okay,
So,
just curious. Thanks.
yeah, and then you would then have to manually give your closing attorney your client's email addresses, which is fine, and they're used to that.
That's how we do it anyways. Thanks.
So once you've gone through and you've filled in your documents, you have a recipient preview. So this will allow you to see what your clients will see when they go to sign. So I'll click on recipient preview, and then I'm gonna select Tony from the drop-down menu. And then at the top up here, we have 3 different options. So it'll show a preview of what it will look like for them to sign on their computer, on a tablet, and their smartphone. Now you can see on their smartphone, it's really small, but in real estate, time is of the essence. And if your clients are out at lunch or dinner or away, they're not at their computer, you can still send them documents and say, hey, you can sign this on your phone. It's gonna be really small and probably impossible to read, but please sign it so we can get this offer over ASAP. So you can click start and it would kind of just jump through all the signature fields and required fields. So you'll see exactly what it's like for them to sign. This isn't actually going to edit or change anything. It's just a preview. Once you're done with the preview, you can click the X in the top right-hand corner, and that will take you back to the envelope editor. And once you are ready to send for signature, click send. And this is now going to send these documents out for signature. Now remember, we sent it to Tony first, then Pepper, and then myself. So we are waiting for others. So I'm gonna pull up Tony's email. So give me a second here, type in my Gmail. Now this is my personal or my work email. So I'm gonna open up the Tony email address. And you can see here, Tony has received an email. It says, please DocuSign 1234 Main Street, ESLA and PSA. So I'm gonna click on that. Scroll down. You'll see we have a private message. Hi, Tony, please be sure to fill in the SPD and CAD before clicking finish. And that's a private message to just Tony. And then below that is the message I sent to both Tony and Pepper. So I'm gonna click review documents so I can go through this and show you what it's like for Tony to sign. So they'll click review, DocuSign will open. Your clients will need to agree to electronic records and signatures, click continue. And then they'll click start. And it's going to jump them to that very first signature field or that required field. They'll click sign. Then the system is going to ask them to confirm their signature. They can select a predetermined signature. They can draw one or they can upload one. I'm just going to click adopt and sign. So it's going to sign that signature field for Tony here. Now you can see the system stopped right here at this required field of what year was the main dwelling constructed. So I'm going to type in 2001. And now Tony's right here and can quickly click through here and start checking all of these boxes. He can type in information, info, anything he needs to put here. And I'm not going to fill in all these, but I just want to show you what it looks like so that way I can fill in a few of them. Boop. All right. So I'm just going to jump down to the bottom. I'll click next. And it's going to jump me right to the signature page for the SPD. Click sign. And again, on the community association disclosure, it's going to stop here for Tony and he has to fill in the name of HOA. And then it's a lot easier for him to scroll up and figure out, all right, I have the mandatory HOA and it costs $1,000 and it is paid in 4 installments. And now he can go through and fill in info, like all the information for these fields. And it's much easier since this required field stopped him from going from one field to the next, and it's a lot easier for him to fill in these fields. There's no special assessment. This includes pool, tennis, and clubhouse, and common property maintenance. And then I'll click initial, sign, sign, initial, sign. Now, Tony's filled in all that information. You can see this button, this finish button up here in the top right-hand corner, or if he scrolls down, there's a finish button. So Tony's gonna click finish. And you need to let your clients, well, now it's gonna ask them if they wanna create an account. They don't need to, so they can click no thanks. And you need to let your clients know they need to receive this "you're all done" message. And that's gonna be what lets the system know, all right, Tony has signed, now we can send these documents to Pepper for her review and signature. So I'm gonna click close here, and then I'm gonna open up my own personal email address right here. So now Pepper will receive this email. Oh, this opened up the wrong one, sorry. I'm here, and then my personal. Now Pepper will have received an email here, see, please DocuSign. I'll scroll down. Here is that message that I sent to both Tony and Pepper, but we don't see that private message that just went to Tony. So Pepper's gonna click review documents. And it's gonna go through the same thing. It's gonna ask her to agree to use electronic records and signatures. Continue. We'll start. It's gonna jump all the way to that signature page. Ask her to confirm her signature. And it's gonna jump all the way to the bottom of the seller's property disclosure. But I'm gonna scroll up to the top because I wanna show you that because Tony filled this in first, Pepper has the ability to review all of the information. And if Tony maybe got something incorrect, you'll be able to catch it here. So it shows in all of these fields that Tony filled in. Perfect, so I'm just gonna scroll back down and sign. And then same thing with the community association disclosure. I can scroll up and see that Tony filled in where it's $1,000, name of HOA, all that contact information. And then click initial, sign, sign, initial, sign. And again, we can see our clients' email addresses are blacked out there. And then Pepper can come here and click finish. It'll ask her if she wants to create an account. No, thank you. And then make sure Pepper gets the "you're all done" sign. Let me come back here. And then I'm gonna come back to my email. And now it says, please DocuSign. It'll show the message I sent to Tony and Pepper. Now it's my opportunity to review and sign these documents. So I'll click review. It's gonna open up a DocuSign window. I'm gonna click continue. Start. It's gonna jump to that signature field, and then it's gonna jump to this field where I'd added to make this document binding. So I'm just gonna make this at 12 p.m. and that date automatically adds there at 10:30. So I filled that in, and now it's gonna jump to signature field, and now I'm finished because those are the only places I had to sign. So I'll click finish here. I don't want to sign in, no thank you. And now it says "you're all done." Now here, I'm going to click back into Tony's email. If you give the system a second, let me just reload this to see if it comes faster. You'll see that the system sent out a completed "please DocuSign exclusive seller listing agreement and PSA," and it has attached those signed documents right here. So all of those signed documents are in your client's email, so they don't have to worry, or you don't have to worry about sending them out those documents for to have for their records. So I'm going to come back into DocuSign. I'm going to refresh the page here for the envelope, and it's going to show that it's completed. Then I'm going to click back into the Documents tab, and I'll scroll down, and you'll see I now have all of these documents that have a green checkbox that say signed. And as I mentioned before, anytime you have a signed and completed document, it will default into the Room Docs folder. But I want to go through and I want to organize them. So I'm going to put all of my listing agreement documents in the listing agreement folder. So I'm going to select all those documents. And then I'm going to come up to the toolbar. I'm going to click Move. I'm going to select my destination, folder, and current room, and select listing agreement and click Move. Let the page refresh, and now I have all of my signed documents up here for my listing agreement, and then I have my signed purchase and sale agreement down here. Now this certification document is just a copy of when everybody reviewed and signed the documents. You don't need it. You can archive it if you want to. It's just there just in case. Now a couple things real quickly, because I know we're running late on time. So if you want to combine these documents into a single document, select all the documents that you'd want to combine. So I'm going to include all of the listing agreement forms. And then I'm going to roll my mouse over the toolbar and click on the combine document. Now I can give this a name. So I'm going to name this 1234 Main Street signed ESLA. And now they're not in the right order. So I'm going to click on the name of the document and then drag it into the position that I want it for this signed larger PDF. So I have this here, and once these documents are in the correct order, I can click Save. The page will reload, and this new combined document will default into the Room Docs folder. So I'm just going to drag that up into the listing agreement folder, because that's where I want it. And this is something that you could send to your client, or if your co-op agent prefers to receive everything as a single document, you can do it as well. You also have the ability to split up documents. So if you receive a document, let's say you're a listing agent and you receive a document from a buyer's agent that has all 6 forms in one document, what you can do is you can upload that document into DocuSign, and then you can select it. Oh, sorry, just open that document. I'm just going to use the one I just combined. Then if you come up to the top right-hand corner, you see this icon of document actions. It looks like a piece of paper with the corner dog-eared. Click on that and then select split. And then it's going to give you the ability to split up all these documents into separate documents. And it's going to have these little thumbnail versions on the right-hand side. And you can roll your mouse over to see exactly what these forms are with page numbers. So you can give these different forms names. So I would give this exclusive seller listing agreement signed. And I'm going to select pages 1 through 8. And now it highlights those documents so I can double check to make sure it's correct. Now if I wanted to add another document, I can click add a document, and then I can make this SPD signed, and I would make this page 9 through, I can just go over here and scroll through all the different pages and make sure they're correct, 9 through 15. And now it highlights it, and I'm good to go. So you can do that for each one of the documents by clicking add a document, giving it a name, and the page numbers. Once you're good to go there, click Save. The page will reload, and then down in that Room Docs default folder, you'll see we have our 2 separate documents, our SPD signed and our exclusive seller listing agreement signed. If you want to send any documents to your co-op agent from DocuSign, what I'd recommend doing is selecting the document or documents that you want to send them, and then come up here to the toolbar and click download, and download that PDF, and then attach that to an email. You do have the ability to email directly from DocuSign, but again, I don't recommend that because they don't attach to the email. The listing agent or the co-op agent will have to click review documents and then download them. To me, that just creates too many steps, and I don't want to risk that with an agent because not everyone's familiar with DocuSign. Now we have everything signed. Now we have to upload these to Command to submit them for compliance review. So going back into Command, all right. Now we have our listing folder. So over here on the left-hand side, we have our listed and under contract folder. So in the listed folder, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add my listing agreement. So I'm going to click add a file. And then I'm going to select DocuSign as the source of documents. And then because I created folders, I can select the folder the listing agreement folder from within DocuSign, and it's going to show me all those documents within that listing agreement folder. Now be mindful because it's going to show every document here. So you'll see I have my affiliated marketing. I need to come find my exclusive seller listing agreement, and there's 2 versions of it. Make sure you select the one that says -signed. So I'll select that and click assign, and it's going to automatically upload that listing agreement from DocuSign into Command. Now, we do have a handful of documents that we need to upload, so we can click on this attach multiple files up here, and then I can select DocuSign as the source, and I can go through and I can add these documents. So I have my community association disclosure, so I can just scroll down to where it says community association disclosure -signed. Same thing with seller's property disclosure. I'm down here to seller's property disclosure statement signed. My Rawls Group affiliated marketing signed. Rawls Group wire fraud prevention -signed, and click attach. And now it has uploaded all of those documents. If for whatever reason a document that you have in your DocuSign does not have a line item here, you can click on add item and give it a name. So I'll just do this combined documents. Document type, you can select this from the drop-down menu. Now, we only have a couple options here. It doesn't have to be the exact document or document type. It's not going to affect compliance review of anything. So I'll just click on agreement. Source of documents, I'm going to select DocuSign. And then I'm going to select my folder, listing agreement folder. And let's say I want to add this combined exclusive seller listing agreement. So I'll click that and then click save. And now I've uploaded that combined documents attached item right here in my opportunity. Once you've gone through and you've uploaded all the documents into Command, click on the Submit to MC button, and that's going to submit these documents to Lynn and Alita for review for compliance. From there, once their review has been completed, you'll get a notification up here at the notification bell. And if you're logged into the Kelly app, it'll say a compliance review event completed. And then over here, the status will change to either approved or declined. And then there would be a note right here with the reason why those documents were declined and any edits or updates you need to make to those documents. So we've gotten to the end of our training. I appreciate your patience. We've gone a couple minutes over. Any questions or anything I can clarify for you or show you again this morning?
That was great, Nick. Thank you so, so much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah,
Anthony,
thank you, Nick. I'm trying to find Raul's affiliated advertising document. I just can't find it. No.
So it's in DocuSign. If you go to envelopes, you have to create a new envelope. So whenever you do that, and then click on the use a template. And then click on shared with me. And this is going to pull up all of the documents that the MCA office has shared with us. And the wire fraud and affiliated marketing disclosures are included here as templates. So it's taking a second to load. There we go. Now we have our buyer version of those 2 disclosures. And I have the seller versions. So make sure you select the correct version based on which side of the transaction that you are working.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me this morning. Oh, Anthony, was that something? All right. Well, let me know what questions come up as you guys are working in DocuSign. I'm always happy to help. And if you don't have a copy of the DocuSign guide, let me know and I can email you a copy of that as well.
Thank you so much.
Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.